Hey, Brian. So we're going to go ahead and start by looking at the training log and then going over a few videos that you sent over. First, go ahead and look at the log. All right, so one of the big things I want to get across today is we really need to focus on sticking to load ranges. Those are there to help guide you, and it's really important that we stick to those the best we can. I don't want to see something that's 130-pound difference between your top load and your bottom load. 3 sets of 2. We should be doing 2 full count pause, really focusing on that training stimulus in this load range and trying to be very specific with it. First set 465, that felt good, 485, and then third set maybe 485 again. But really focusing on staying within that load range for realistically each and everything. If the only time we really veer away from it is if we're just not feeling up to it for the day. Maybe we got bad sleep, nutrition's been bad, stress been through the roof, you're just not moving well, we need to focus on form, whatever it may be. We can obviously go lower, but really for you, kind of the main experience I've had with you is that you're very tempted to go over the load range with a lot of different things. And while it's not a bad quality to have, at the same time, that's definitely going to be an issue if we're not really dialed in on form-wise right now, and we're still pushing it far above the load range. So we're kind of lifting heavier weights than we should be doing with form that's still not quite optimal or going to be legal. So I really want to focus on dialing things down and just focusing on making legal lifts, making it so that you don't get, you don't get DQ'd. So we'll go ahead and look at a few videos here. This is the first one I want to go over with the 515. So this is about 30 pounds over where I wanted us to be for load range. And we really want to focus on that 2 count pause just below the knees. That's going to develop so many qualities that we're really looking for in terms of strength. And it's really important that we go just below the knees, 1 Mississippi. Once we completely stop, it's 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, go. But as you can see here, we probably didn't get to 1. We just kind of kept moving. In fact, we never really stopped. So it was awesome that you got this load really, really good. And then second rep, obviously, was pinned to the floor. Didn't move quite as well as we wanted to. But this is why it's really important to stick to those load ranges, because we didn't hit the full count pause, and then we didn't get the second rep, unfortunately. But yeah, so we just definitely want to focus on that. With 495 times 2 is very similar. We didn't get to a count pause just below the knees, and we're going for that 2 count. So it should be stop right there, like complete stoppage of motion, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, then moving with absolutely no bar movement whatsoever. That's really want to focus on, and that's what we're going to do. That's how we're going to develop a lot of the qualities we're looking for in this point in training. Sumo. Again, we're not completely decided on what we're going to be using come meet time, but sumo, the main issue we're having is that we're not locking out completely at the knees, at the top. We're locking out, soft knee lockout, a little bit of forward motion there, and right there. Judges are going to look at that and basically say, no way, Jose, we're not locked out yet, and we're not going to get the lift. So we really got to focus on locking those knees out, standing tall at the top, and that 100% comes from tension building. We got to keep in mind that anytime somebody has forward motion upon lifting the weight off the floor, that's a key indicator that we're not locking out or we're not building tension good enough. And the second indicator that we're not building tension good enough is soft knees at the top. Well, we're having issues with both those things, so we definitely need to work on tension building. As you can see here, the first thing we do is have a lot of forward motion forward, a lot of wasted energy there, and then we slowly start to drive up with soft knees at the top. So right here, we just kind of jerk it, and then soft knees, that's when we have a lot of those issues there. And then as you can see with the conventional, it's going to be very similar. You got a little better tension building qualities here, but one of the first things that happen is hips shoot up, a little bit of forward motion, especially once we get to heavier loads. If we replay this guy here, good position, forward motion, and then we start moving it up. But if we can eliminate that wasted motion and just have a solid, all of your strength going into one motion up, that's going to be unbelievably beneficial for how much load you can put on the bar. Mitigating wasted energy will turn that 515 into 600. I'm not kidding. Wasted motion is the biggest reason why people can't demonstrate their fullest strength. So let's just really focus on that wasted motion kind of getting eliminated as we work together. Let's look at bench press. Again, even though this is a light load, this is a load that you can handle all day, but even now, again, the second those glutes come up, they DQ you. So we really got to focus on even that amount that just happened, even though it looks like nothing and almost irritating that they'll still call you out on it. It still won't count because of it. So I don't want to dial that in with lighter loads either. And as you can see, it kind of happens every load. Even though your pants are touching the ground, once you wear a singlet, your glutes will come off and they'll call you out for it, unfortunately, which I personally have gotten hit for a few times, and it's very irritating. Even if it's a quarter inch, if your glutes don't touch, then it doesn't count. So we really got to focus on getting our feet further away. So if we have to, I don't want to worry about leg drive. Leg drive, it doesn't even have to exist. I just want to worry about making everything legal and making sure that you don't get DQ'd or anything like that happens. I want to make sure you're ready to understand all the cues and make sure that nothing gets funky there. So taking your feet, putting them further away. The farther they are under you to an extent, the more likely you're going to shoot your glutes up. So there's two big things we can do with leg drive. One, taking your feet, the farther your toes are pointed out, the more likely that your glutes are going to come up to an extent. Some people get away with it, but most people don't. You'll notice that just going from here to here, that alone will mitigate the chances of your glutes coming up. You'll likely feel a lot of discomfort in the hips when you first do that. So going from here to here, you might have to put your feet further out from under you. But whatever we can do to get those glutes from coming up, let's go ahead and do it. That we can develop strength in the true pattern you're going to be using for the meet, and there's no variables we have to worry about. Next, let's go ahead and look at the last final video we'll go over, and that is squats, I believe. So I want to get super specific with when you use wraps. I don't want to do them for all working sets because you'll notice there's a few reasons why we don't want to do that. So we're starting to get into better depths, starting to look a lot better here. But last thing I want to do, bam. So if we look at the bottom here, even though it seems really minor, that's still not quite where they're looking for. So what we got to do is, first thing I want to do is take your toes, go from here to here. It's going to be kind of a band-aid on an issue, but at the same time, when they're pointed a little bit further out, you'll be more likely to sit back. And that's another thing I want you to focus on, is sitting back into the hole a little bit more as you ascend in the hole. And again, next week, we are going to do a deload. So I just want to focus on all of these concepts being dialed in. And the biggest thing, squats, full range of motion, we really need to work on that, because once you put on wraps, it's actually going to be a lot harder, really, really hard. And when you put on wraps, unfortunately, the judges actually look for it, if anything, a little bit more. So we really got to focus on not only doing it with bare knees, but also with wraps. And I definitely want you to think about if you want to wear wraps. Unfortunately, I personally, my first meet, I competed without them. And I kind of think that's a little superior, because there's a whole new component when you go to your first meet with wearing wraps. You have to worry about timing. If you don't get your timing perfect, because once they say, hey, next lifter up, and it's you, you get this amount of time to get up there, get ready, and do your thing. And you have to do it at a very particular time, usually when you're in the hole. But you need to wrap yourself, put everything around you, and then get out there in the perfect amount of time. So it kind of adds a little more complexity come meet day, just from that perspective. But then also it makes it a little harder to pull yourself in the hole, because realistically, when you're wearing the wraps as tight as you should, when you're wearing them as tight as you should, you won't even be able to bend your knee. It feels like a cast. You'll be stiff-legged walking out, feels very uncomfortable, hurts very badly. And then the only way you can actually sit into the hole and squat full range of motion is with 500-600 pounds on your back. And even then, you'll find that if you wrap it appropriately for competition tightness, you'll literally get to a point where you have to pull yourself into the hole just to get full range of motion. So let's go ahead and work on those concepts. Deload week, we're going to take load down significantly. Let's really focus on sticking to load ranges. I think the biggest reason you're having accumulation of injuries right now is because we've just been bumping past them at random times, and we're not really fully adapting to a few of the rep stimuluses we've gone for, because say we're doing doubles with a 2-count pause, we don't really hit that 2-count pause, and then we use such a heavy weight that we can't get the second reps at times, which again causes injury because we're not quite ready for those loads yet. So again, let's really focus full count pause, glutes not leaving the bench, full range of motion squat, really focus on that, because I promise it's going to be detrimental, really frustrating when you put months into work, get strong as fuck, and then you get done with the lift, you see no lights on the board, you get DQ'd, and you're just pissed off as hell because you paid the money, you went through all this training, and you got DQ'd. And it's unbelievably frustrating, and you're going to find that out, or hopefully actually you won't find that out, because it's awful. Ideally, we're going 9 for 9 on our first meet. That's going to be our goal. So again, glutes staying to bench, really focus on that. taking those feet, driving out further, straightening them out. Full range of motion squat. If you have to, taking the toes a little wider out, sitting back more to make sure our hips and our knee are actually, we got to break 90, have to break 90. And then with deadlift, really focusing on building tension so there's no forward motion. Keep in mind, anytime you experience that wasted forward motion, that's 100% because of tension building. So just focusing on eliminating that and locking out with straightened knees at the top. Just really focus on those things, deload week and obviously going forward, and definitely kind of ask yourself, do you want to wear wraps? If we learn how to use them and adapt to them really well, we should be able to add at least 50 pounds to our squat just like that, maybe more. So that's kind of nice. And at the same time, your surrounding musculars, because while wraps better or allow better, easier knee extension. They don't help with your spinal erectors. They don't help with your back. They don't help with this and that and this and that. All these muscles have to adapt to that 50 pounds heavier weight, so your body will get stronger from wearing them. So that's a pro for them. You kind of go back and forth on pros and cons wearing wraps for your first meet. But if you do decide to wear them, let's go ahead and start getting into them. I'll start programming it. We're going to start with wraps once a week, and then as we get closer to meet, we'll go to twice a week. And I'll show you some new ways to wrap them and some expectations on how tight they should be, because that's one thing that threw me off quite a bit at first when I wrapped myself. I noticed I can actually bend my knee, pretend it's my knee. I can bend my knee when I have them on, and then someone else wrapped me for the first time, actually Duffin, and holy shit, did it hurt. It was like a cast. That's literally exactly like it was. So once you get to that cast tightness, then we have to adapt to feeling what the full range of motion squat is and kind of adapt to those principles as well. So let's go ahead and make that decision though. Let me know what it is, and then I can start programming appropriately for that.